why do companies want to hire sports people? And he was like, oh no, I've had a company who hired a former Olympic rower. He's now been promoted 3 times within his first year because he's done so well. And I was like, oh, right. I said, well, what was it about him that got promoted? Was he just a unique, really good candidate, really good employee? And he's like, well, no, that he was driven, he was determined. When he failed, he learned quickly and showed resilience. He was easily coached, picked it up within a second. He was a good leader, good communicator, competitive, always wanted to beat his last year and his last quarter. In my head, thinking, I've got that. I do that. And all my teammates are like that. It's just natural to them because... and then it dawned on me that every single professional sports person will have had to have shown these qualities at some point, undoubtedly, at some point within their sporting career. The very fact that they've made it to be a professional sports person, I'm 90% sure that they would have had to have shown 90% of these traits. And Rob, who's this recruiter, said to me, well, those are the kind of people that make amazing employees.
Yeah, Robbie Simpson, thanks for joining us on Chapters this morning. So I was going to start off with going through the teams you played with, but I don't know if I've got enough time, to be honest. It's going to take about half an hour. But I'll just go through. Obviously, you started at Norwich in kind of a youth squad, if that's right. And then Cambridge City, Cambridge United, Coventry City, Huddersfield Town, Brentford on loan, Oldham on loan twice, I think. Leyton Orient, Cambridge United, Exeter City, MK Dons, and now you're at Chelmsford City as a player manager. Are you still player manager or are you a manager?
I'm registered to play, but I haven't played at all this season yet, and I can't envisage me playing at all this season yet. So I would say I'm just a manager now.
So that's a lot of miles you put in around the country. That goes into one of my first questions is, how was that kind of moving around so much? Was there a time where you felt as a footballer, I'm not really getting settled here, of places that you kind of seems to be moving quite a lot? Or did you feel, that was just part and parcel of being a footballer?
I feel there was 2 ways of thinking of it, really. I loved moving around to different places and seeing how diverse the country is and the ways of living in different parts of the country, whether that be London with Brentford or Leeds with Huddersfield, although I did look around Leeds to live, around Huddersfield to live, and soon realised that I probably needed to be in a city up north rather than a town. But yeah, it was. I loved the different cultures within our own country. I loved moving around, dotting around that way, and I've got lots of friends all over the country now, so I can go and visit them, and so I love that aspect to it. But I guess it could be it was a bit unsettling as well, that you never quite felt settled, or as soon as you did start to feel settled, you were moving to Exeter. So it's you can look at it 2 ways, really. I feel there was probably only one, sort of two moves that were, well, one I chose definitely to be closer to my then girlfriend, who I knew was soon to be my fiance and hopefully start a family with. She was doing a master's degree at Middlesbrough University, Teesside University, and I had the choice of whether to sign for Huddersfield or Norwich, and I chose to sign for Huddersfield so I could be more local to her. There were other reasons, of course, but that definitely was a factor. Yeah. And then I made a difficult decision to sign for Exeter when we'd just moved and bought what we considered to be our family home in Hertfordshire. When I signed for Leyton Orient and then moved to Cambridge, we were settled there. We knew that it was where we wanted to settle, not too far from our families. And then I get an offer from Exeter, and that really did play on me whether I should do it or not. But I did. But I think they were the only 2 times where location was a factor in my decision making. Obviously, one I chose to really use it in my decision making, and one I decided to. That was one of the reasons I could dismiss.
I mean, this is I suppose a theme at the moment for players, because the transfer window just closed, and there seems to be a lot of movement around for players. Maybe going on loan to, especially kind of League One, League Two. You can just be all the way from Torquay, I suppose, to going up to Darlington, for instance, things like that. Do you think players realise that they're going to be upheaved so quickly without kind of their choice to go, right, you have to go up here, you have to go here for a medical quickly? Do you think they realise they're getting into that kind of career?
Yeah, I do. I think that they're well known how quickly football moves. Absolutely. I think that's part and parcel of the industry. It's so fast moving. Like even
Have you
from
experienced that yourself?
I haven't experienced that mid-season, no. And I think that's the tough one. The January window is always hard because you do for clubs as well, like trying to get rid of players or trying to sign players, because that, I think mid-season, that does play a factor. You haven't got time. It's literally the season, you're mid-season, you've got a game on the Saturday and suddenly you've got to move to a new part of the country, new football club, and do it really quickly because you've got a game in a couple of days' time. So I think mid-season, that definitely is a factor and takes its toll. But I think in the off-season, I think it's less so because you've got a month or two to get settled, and then you've got pre-season to really get settled. And I don't think that's too much of an issue because the players know that that's what being a footballer can entail.
Going back to the start of your career, you were studying at the same time. Is that correct? As when you were playing at Cambridge City, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. So I was at Norwich from the age of 9 years old until I was 16. Well, just at the end of the under 16 age group, and I didn't get offered a scholarship at Norwich. I got sent a letter in the post telling me I wasn't going to get a scholarship at Norwich, and that was it. And it hit me hard, even though
It's quite brutal to get just a letter, not a phone call or anything.
yeah, I think that's just how it was back then. There definitely wasn't much personal element to that kind of decision at all.
Yeah.
Back in that day. I would like to think that it's a bit different now, especially someone who'd been there for 7 years, best part of 7 years.
And as a kid.
Yeah, and a kid. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I'd hope that they'd bring the kid in with the parents these days and sit them down and let them down gently. Yeah, but I just got a letter in the post. I remember crying my eyes out in my bedroom, and my mum coming and giving me a cuddle, and I felt quite emotional. And that was even me knowing that even if I did get offered a scholarship, I doubt I would have taken it because it wouldn't have allowed me to carry on my education. I would have had to have done a BTEC, or what the equivalent to what a BTEC in sports science is these days. And I really wanted to do my A levels. More importantly, my mum told me I had to do my A levels. So I wasn't going to go against her. So I think even though I realised that I probably wouldn't have been able to take the scholarship I have anyway, it still hit me really hard, like emotionally, that I guess it was my first taste of rejection as a football player and being told I wasn't good enough. That was my first taste of it. But I quickly signed for Cambridge City, who had an academy that allowed their younger players to do A-levels alongside a full-time football programme. Wasn't too far from home, although I did move away from home. I lived with a foster family for my time that I was there. And yeah, I just thought the programme was amazing. I'd never heard of a football programme that played at a high enough level whilst also allowing you to take A-levels. I was in straight away. My mind was like, this is amazing. I'm going to do everything I can on both my academics and my football, give it everything. Living away from home was a great experience as well.
Why did you feel so passionately about the education side? I mean, football has a kind of a bit of a notorious kind of maybe an element of players just wanting to be a footballer. They're not really, they might be at an academy, and in the academy they have to promote education. It's part of the curriculum. But let's be honest, the footballer wants to become a Premier League footballer. That's there, maybe, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And why for you was it so important to get that, apart from just your mum? But there must have been an internal drive for you as well to get that education.
Yeah, I think I think from the age of 3 years old, all I ever wanted to be was a football player. That was still true. I think that I had elder brothers and sisters that went to university and looked like they were having the time of their lives away at university, and it was something that I was wanting to do, especially speaking to them when they come back and term times and at Christmas, how much they're loving it, the friends that they have or had made from it. That was definitely a factor. Like, I looked at them and thought, yeah, I wanna leave home and go to university and live with my mates.
Yeah.
Plus, I was academic. I knew I was. I got good grades at school. I was in the top sets, so I knew I was academic, and I guess fulfillment in a way of my brain as well. I wanted my brain to be fulfilled as well as my football ability.
So it wasn't a slog for you, was it? You actually enjoyed the learning side. It wasn't, for some people, they might not enjoy learning because they don't grasp it. It's just not their thing, is it?
Yeah, exactly. And don't get me wrong, there were some subjects I absolutely hated, like history, and absolutely hated those. But I enjoyed maths. Absolutely loved maths. I loved problem solving. I love numbers.
We're so different, Robbie. I'm the opposite. I love history and hate maths.
Really? Yeah. History and English are my worst subjects, but maths, science.
Maybe that's why my finances are crap.
I can help you with them. Yes, I guess in that aspect, that's what I had that, and that's maybe, like you say, I was a bit different to other footballers.
Do you think there's a stigmatism to like learning and education in sport? Maybe not sport, but especially in football.
Well, you mean if you want to make it as a footballer, you have...
Sorry, not educate. Just getting an education whilst you're at football. Do you think there's still that kind of I don't want to be seen as learning because I don't want to be seen as being a boff or something? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do think there still is that stigma, and I don't think it's just from the players. I think it's from the coaches as well. I think that football players still get told at a young age, and it's kind of like it's the flip side, really. They get told that only 1% of you will make it as a professional footballer. But rather than then saying, so we're going to make you well-rounded individuals to give you the best chance of success in any walk of life. We're going to give you the best football education. We're also going to make you a better person and develop your mental capacity or education. And we're going to make sure that whatever happens when you leave this football club, you are either, or when you come to the end of this scholarship period or whatever period it is, we're going to make sure that you're either a professional footballer with us or with somebody else, or you're going to have so many other opportunities away from football that you're going to look back and thank our football club for helping you in every aspect of your life. And I don't think there's that element of it. I think there is only 1% of you are going to make it. So if you want to be that 1%, you have to eat, sleep, drink football, no other distractions. And I think there's still that. So there is education afternoons put in the player's diary. And I know that some coaches, why are they doing that? Like they need to be out training if they want to make it. And there's still that kind of internal fight within clubs. So yeah, there is still that stigma. And obviously with players, you'll get some players that maybe are academic like I was, that want to do education, but then there's other people in the changing room so what are you doing that for? Do you not want to be a footballer? You ought to forget that and concentrate on your football, especially if they then have a bad game. It's a ready-made excuse for someone to throw at them. So there's still a battle, let's say.
You said how at Norwich you only were able to do a BTEC. Was it in sports science or was it in sport something?
Yeah, sports science, yeah.
Yeah, it always seems to be very sport-based when I've heard about what footballers do. It's like, okay, if you're a footballer there, you get some kind of certificate for to be a PT or to be something in sport. And it's almost, but these guys might be really interested in music, or they might be actually very creative people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it seems to be quite narrow, that almost like, right, you're an athletic person, therefore you're only going to be doing something to do with sport. Do you think there needs to be something a bit more wider, or does that just make it too much work for the club?
It's a very good last statement. How much work is too much work for them? And it's something that I'm very passionate about, Craig, because it is still there, and it very much feels like we're going to tick an education box. We're going to make them all do a BTEC in sports science. We know they have to continue full-time education until they're 18. Let's give them a BTEC in sports science because, let's face it, majority of them, or if not all of them, are interested in sport. But like I say, it's very how diverse does that make them, both as a person and the footballer? To be honest with you, how do you get their brain thinking differently and learning new things? And it's something I feel very, very passionate about. And to put it bluntly, it's not good enough from the system. It is not, especially when there's the fallout rate there is. I feel like that there's a duty of care to these young players to make them, to give them every chance of success, whether that be with their football club, in football, or beyond football. I feel like there's a duty of care in society to give young people the best opportunity possible, and just giving one and only option of a BTEC in sports science is limiting them to their future potential. And yeah, it's something I feel really passionate about. I do understand that it's a lot of hard work to be able to timetable A-levels or a vocation or a trade into mixing with a full-time football program. But if Cambridge City, a non-league club with no funding, can do it, and they have a head of academy there that does a 250-mile walk every year to raise 100 grand to be able to have a partnership with a sixth form college that allows A-levels and filters a timetable around the A-levels. And I feel like these clubs can do it. And there's one club that I've been into that do, Man City, and everybody throws at me, yeah, well, they've got the money to do it. And it's like, well, everybody's got the money to do it. It's how you,
but they do it,
where you choose to spend that money and how much you allocate of your budget towards it. I feel like it's definitely possible and should happen. And also, one of my bugbears as well is I love the program at Cambridge City because we went into a sixth form college, we could choose our subjects, and we weren't all in the same classroom together. Yeah, there was a couple or 3 or 4 of us in the same lesson every now and again, but we were interacting with other people. You know, I met my wife at this sixth form college, whereas nowadays it's the teachers go into the training ground, so it's not a different environment for them. The teachers go into the training ground, teach them this BTEC in sport.
Let's get this lesson out of the way.
They're all in the same classroom. They're not interacting with any other human being. And they can see the football pitch out the window where they all want to be. Majority of them want to be. Are they really focused on it anyway? It all feels like we're ticking a box here, and it's not helping the individual develop as a human being or interact with fellow other human beings outside of football. We're restricting them at the minute, and it's like I say, you probably see how passionate I am about it, but it's not good enough.
It's something that I'm really interested in as well, because I found out over the years that I've become interested in things that, I mean, I'm not an ex-athlete like yourself, but just the learning side of, you realize what you are interested in and what makes you work better if you are interested in something. And I think there are footballers out there, young lads and girls as well, who are so creative. I really enjoy creativity. They might be so creative, and it's just they're being tied up because they have to do just these certain subjects just because it is ticking a box.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. They're given. We need to give them the freedom to explore themselves. Like you say, you're still learning stuff about yourself that you didn't realize, and these players need that. They need to realize, oh, actually, I do enjoy that. That's not football. But we're not giving them the opportunity to do so. And that's when football does end, because even if they make it as a footballer and have a 15-year career like I did, guess what? It comes to an end. Then what you're going to do? So it's really key that we allow them to explore themselves.
Mm. So coming towards the end of you've still on paper got a football career. You're on the books, but you had a good career, you had a long career. You're obviously performing at a level to keep getting contracts. But was there a time where you thought, oh, actually, I need to start looking for what I'm going to do after football does come to an end?
Yeah, well, the big eye-opener for me, and this was after going to university and getting a degree, but before I became a professional football player. I still then, as soon as I became a professional football player and played in the championship, I was then in the bubble and had the mindset, right, I'm a footballer now. Nothing else matters. And I was out of contract one summer. There was a bit of naivety on my part, but also reality does hit me. But I was turning down contract offers from teams in the same league as what I was playing in. Didn't get offered a new deal at Oldham. I wanted to get back to the Championship. I'd always regretted signing for a team below the Championship when I could have stayed at Championship level. I'd regretted that and always wanted to get back to the Championship. I felt like it was probably my last chance of doing so, given my age. I had interest in terms of clubs wanting me to come in and do pre-season with them, so I did that at 3 or 4 Championship clubs. Got pretty close to signing for 1 or 2 of them, but it never materialised. I then went back to the League One clubs that offered me deals, and none of them had any budget left anymore. So I was in a bit of limbo, really, about what to do. And I was just hanging on.
Do you have financial pressures as well at this time? Do you have a house and mortgage and stuff like that? Is that on your mind?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So previously, I'd always been quite good with my money. You know, my dad worked in Barclays for 40 years. He always used to drum into me, you need to save before you spend and budget. So I was pretty good at investing and saving money each year. But that was another big realization was, I went 5 months without any income, out any wage, and suddenly my what I thought was a pretty good pot of investments and savings was almost cut in half. And I was like, well, this is going down quickly. I'm going to need to sign for someone soon, or I'm going to need to get a job. And the fact of the matter is that football offers weren't coming, and I was in a bit of a crossroads. Right, is this the end of my football career, and I hunt for a job, or do I offer to play for free for someone for no money, and try and then earn a contract in the January when maybe people's budgets change, or try and ride it out to the summer and then hopefully get offers from there, just get back in the shop window. So I offered to play for Leyton Orient for free, for nothing, until the January. So I signed like a 2-month deal with them to play for nothing until the January. And then they extended my contract to the end of the season and paid me a bit, but not a lot. Certainly not enough to cover my outgoings at the time. And then my career continued for another sort of 5 years after that. So, but it was at that moment where I thought, right, I need to seriously start thinking about what I want to do away from football.
This goes into Laps. You're a perfect guest for this podcast, Robbie, because Laps is all about how athletes transition for life after professional sport. That's the name of the company, Laps, Life After Professional Sport. Was there a moment in particular that this idea came to you to start this? What was it? Did something happen at a club where you thought, oh, people are struggling here, we need to create something to create an answer to this problem?
Yeah, well, it was the moment I just mentioned that sort of made me then think back to my old teammates that had retired and suffered problems. Prior to that moment, I'd seen them retire and have problems, and I just felt for them. I didn't say, "Oh, no, yeah, sorry, you're struggling, whatever." But it wasn't until it happened to me where I thought, "Oh yeah, looking back now, I had a teammate who tried to commit suicide when his career came to an end, and people even at the start of my football career." I had the likes of Stephen Hughes and Arjan Dazou, who played in the Premier League, and Stephen Hughes had been part of the Invincibles squad at Arsenal, and they're asking me about my university degree and what careers I could go into with it. And I was sitting in the change room at the time, just signed for a Championship club, wide-eyed, thinking, why the hell are you asking me this? Like, surely you're part of the Invincibles, a team that I support. I just couldn't fathom it at the time in my brain. I was like, oh, you'll be fine. Like, you'll have loads of money, but you'll have fine. You're Stephen Hughes. Anybody will offer you a job. But then looking back, after I'd experienced it, and I thought, I can definitely now see why players go bankrupt, players get divorced, that they really struggle with who they are and their existence on this earth. That I could really resonate with it. So it was that moment that made me think, like, back in time about my former teammates, but also I looked on. So I got contacted by the PFA asking whether I wanted to be put on their transfer list, they called it. And I said, well, what is it? And they said, well, everybody who's out of contract now that were with a club previously, we put them on the transfer list so everybody knows they're available. And I was like, well, yeah, I will then. And I naturally, I looked on the transfer list to see what other strikers were on it, just to see how high up the pecking order I might be. And there was pages and pages of players, like over 300 players on there. And I'm thinking, God, it's a lot. And if I'm feeling anxious and seeing my money go down and worrying about what I'm going to do if I don't get a club, and I've been quite good with my money and I've got a degree already, I'm probably in the top 1% of these lads who are well equipped to move on to life after football and maybe take a year out deciding what I want to do and get qualified and get experience. I imagine 99% of these lads are really struggling, having to move back home if they don't already live at home and no education behind them. So that was a real light bulb moment for me to say there needs to be something more for players when this happens, when they're out of contract, when they're thinking about or having to think about life beyond football. So that was the moment that in my head Laps was born. And at that moment I started connecting people with people on LinkedIn. So people used to say to me at the time, "I'll use your network. You'll have a huge network." So I was like, right, well, I haven't. How can I get one? Well, go on LinkedIn, start connecting with people, and people will just want to connect with you. So I did. And then one guy reached out who was a recruiter for various companies. He reached out to me and said, "I'm working with companies who want to recruit sports people, but they're really hard to get in contact with." So I met him for a coffee. And I said, "Well, why do companies want to hire sports people? Is it just because they want a name, and is there actually any substance behind it? Or they just want to say, oh, we employ or we work with such and such who used to play football?" And he was like, "Oh, no, I've had a company who hired a former Olympic rower, and he's now been promoted 3 times within his first year because he's done so well." And I was like, "Oh, right." I said, "Well, what was it about him that got promoted? Was he just a unique, really good candidate, really good employee?" And he's like, "Well, no, that he was driven, he was determined. When he failed, he learnt quickly and showed resilience. He was easily coached, or easily, like, he picked it up within a second, just by a simple demonstration. He was a good leader, good communicator, competitive, always wanted to beat his last year and his last quarter." And in my head, thinking, I've got that. I do that, and all my teammates are like that. It's just natural to them because. And then it dawned on me that every single professional sports person would have had to have shown these qualities at some point, undoubtedly at some point within their sporting career. The very fact that they've made it to be a professional sports person, I'm 90% sure that they would have had to have shown 90% of these traits. And Rob, who's this recruiter, said to me, "Well, those are the kind of people that make amazing employees, regardless of whether they've got a degree or not." So that was another light bulb moment for me, that I was coming at it from the angle of we need to help these people, whereas Rob came to me at it with these people are really desirable. So we came together, and that was when Laps was really born, I would say, because we came at it from both angles. He had a problem that he needed to solve. I had a problem that I needed to solve, and it happened that we were the solution to each other's problems. So that was when Laps was born.
And let's say a cricketer or a rugby player decides to retire or stop playing. How did they? If they contacted Laps, what happens? What's the process of someone
Yeah, well, we hope that they now join whilst they're still playing. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we feel like, just as in your playing career, preparation is key. So why wait until it happens to then react? Be proactive. So that's a big thing for us. We try and go into and give talks to younger sports people, and we get funded by the Premier League actually to go in and speak to under 18s and under 23s to get them thinking about their other interests away from football. So we definitely hope that they start to plan early, and we've got a few pages on our website that are dedicated to helping you find another career that might be suitable for you and your personality traits, but also something that you want to do and something you might have an interest in. So there's certain things where we feel like we might give them a bit of, definitely give them a bit of insight, but also a bit of inspiration about, I might be interested in that. I want to explore that further. And we've got a courses page where they could get, if that career or something they are interested in does require a qualification, they know where to get those qualifications, and hopefully it can be remote or a bit ad hoc to suit them doing alongside their sporting career. We also give tips about how to use their network to maybe find work experience whilst they're still playing, like speaking to sponsors at games, for example, and maybe going in on their day off to work shadow a certain, or desk hop and work shadow to get that experience, or in the off season, rather than going on holiday for 2 months, maybe spend 2 weeks of it in a company getting some work experience. So there's all that I hope they can do whilst they're still playing. But in terms of the process of joining LAPS as a member, it's totally free to become a member. It's a free service for the athletes. Their first point of call, as soon as they register their interest, our member support manager, Ronnie, would give them a call or an email or both, and just get in touch with them and ask them why. Like, why have you shown an interest in LAPS? What stage are you at? Are you a current athlete just looking at what we're about, or are you looking to get qualified, or are you looking for a new career, or are you at that stage where you need a job tomorrow? And Ronnie's the guy that kind of is the first port of call for that and understanding, and then we've got a team behind the team of, I guess you could call them recruitment consultants or salespeople trying to get partnerships with companies, or for companies to use us as their preferred supplier for recruitment, to advertise their jobs with us, or use us as a recruitment agency to help them filter out CVs. Ronnie will help them write their CVs, as will Rob, being a recruiter as well. And there's loads of content that we want to put out there of case studies of success stories, like athletes that have moved into new careers and are thriving. So we kind of put lots of content out there. We've got a social media and marketing team that put these stories out there constantly, and on our social media channels and on our website. And we hope that inspires people to think about what they might want to do beyond their competing days or alongside their competing days.
I suppose this would lead on to what you do now. You have your own company, RS19 Limited. This is lifestyle financial planning. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So I've always been interested in finance, whether that be because I was good with numbers and maths at school, or whether it was because my dad worked for Barclays. I've always been interested in finance from a young age. When you become a footballer, you often get asked the question, what would you be if you weren't a footballer? And I always used to say a financial advisor, and I didn't know what that entailed. I just knew it was to do with finance, and I knew it was maybe just a sector that I thought I would go into if I wasn't a footballer. And then towards the end of when I set up LAPS, we partnered with a couple of companies that have a route into becoming financial planners. Mm-hmm. And we sent a few LAPS members to them, and obviously got feedback, and the LAPS members said, oh yeah, thanks so much, like, it's a great career. I wouldn't have thought I'd been able to do it, but I am, and I'm loving it. And when it came to the real end of my full-time career, I had a decision to make. Do I make LAPS? Do I convert LAPS from my passion project, I guess, into a career? Or do I keep it as a passion project and form my own career? And obviously I've chosen the latter. I never wanted to see LAPS, or I never envisaged LAPS to be my career. It was definitely something that I set up and wanted to have there as a passion project of mine, because I really feel passionate about the need for it.
Yeah.
I guess laps helped me figure out a personality trait of mine that I didn't know I had of helping people. And one aspect of combining helping people and my love of finance is to be a financial planner and helping people utilize their finances to help them plan for the now and for the future. And I know from experience athletes make really good financial planners, because I'd use laps as my guinea pig, I guess. And
yeah,
I absolutely love it, and I've been doing it for 4 years now, and I still feel as excited about it as I did when I first started.
do you think there is a bit of a problem with financial planning for athletes or footballers in that set? Do they need more of a guidance on how to look after their money whilst they're playing? I suppose after their career as well.
Yeah, I do. I do. I think there's a big gap. I think that there's obvious lifestyle demands which you can't ignore, and you can't really suppress. But there is lifestyle demands of being a professional footballer in particular, and obviously that becomes tough when you're not earning the income anymore that you once were, when you could afford to live that lifestyle. But I feel like
maybe outgoings are more than your...
certainly, yeah. I mean, they're earning a lot of money at a young age, spending a lot of money at a young age, getting used to a lifestyle or loving a certain lifestyle, which costs a lot. And suddenly when their career ends, they've not got the income to support the lifestyle. And I think it's making best use of their earnings and being tax efficient with them. And when you're a former sports person yourself, you know what they're about to go through, but more importantly, you know the emotion and the pressures of what they do, which can give you an added advantage rather than technical knowledge. In the sense, anybody could get the technical knowledge of investments and tax efficient investments and budgeting and everything like that. Everything that's in books, you can get the technical knowledge, but the personal lived experience and able to relate to the sports person when you're helping them plan is key, really. Footballers always say it, you don't know what the environment's like unless you've been in it, and they're absolutely right. But I do think, the stats show for themselves. The fact that I think FIFA Pro came out with a study a few years ago that said 2 in 5 footballers are bankrupt within 5 years of retiring. So the stats are there to be seen for themselves at how much value taking on advice as a professional sports person gives. So yeah, I think it's something I'm really passionate about. Well, 2 things really: helping them find new purpose and new careers and new interests alongside their sport, but also helping them plan financially for the longer term and making best use of their income while it's there.
Do you think there is a little bit of a, we're talking about stigmatism too, talking about education? Is there the same for kind of money? Do you think some people don't really want to discuss their money? They almost just want to get on with their career and they'll hope that will sort itself out at the end? Or do you think there's just a lack of financial literacy for footballers or athletes?
Yeah, I think... there's definitely a bit of a lack of financial literacy. There is an element of that, but there's also an element of the former thing you said there about secrecy. I guess it's in football, it's pretty much an unwritten rule that you keep what you're earning secret from the rest of the lads and even the public, because it's kind of a defense mechanism, because maybe when people know what you're earning, they can hold it against you more often than not, particularly in football and in the public eye. Like, oh, you had a bad game and you earned that this week. Like, how can you justify that?
It's the standard response, yeah.
Yeah, it's an easy one. And even with laps, I often get comments saying, oh, why do these people need help? They'll have earned millions doing something they love. They can now that welcome to the real world. I'm like, well, some way of thinking that, like, so there's definitely some form of defense mechanism rather than secrecy, or that I think it's the defense mechanism, which is why I feel like being able to relate to the client in terms of I've been through it, that really helps break down their walls, I guess. And financial literacy, it's something that it, like you mentioned there, you're not a maths guy at all, and it would scramble your head and make you stressed, which means you wouldn't play better. And some players are actually really literate in finances and want to know the ins and outs of why they're doing it, what it will give them back. And you get differences all along, and no matter who you speak to, and that's it, not just footballers, that's in every walk of life. So yeah, in general, I feel like there's a big need for it. Without, you only know what you know. So if you can,
exactly,
yeah. And the sooner you take advice from anything on,
the more you don't know.
Yeah, exactly that. Spot on.
It's something that I'm trying to improve on, kind of the financial side as we get older and going into my 40s is, right, we have to start planning where are we putting things. And it makes you feel better to know what exactly is coming in and what exactly is going out. And it improves, I think it improves the relationship as well with your wife or partner.
Yeah, it does. It does. There's communication. I met many clients of mine that, let's just take a pension as an example. They got forced by their parents to start a pension at 18 years old and put a minimum amount in. And now they're sort of 40s and their 50s. They can't thank their parents enough for forcing them to do so, because it means they can...
They're not complaining now yet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think it's one of them that it's what I said about preparing for the end of your sporting career, that the earlier you can prepare financially, the better you'll be. And in effect, the less it'll cost you. If you're 34, knowing that you're coming to the end of the season and you might retire and you haven't planned financially and you think, right, what do I need to do to make myself secure for the next however many years? It's going to be a lot harder than when you signed at 17, a pro at 17, just chipped away each year for the next 17 years until you're 34. You'll be a lot happier for that than putting it off or spending it until that moment. So yeah, the early, like with everything, the earlier you plan, the better. And it's tough with the YOLO generation. You only live once, live for today. Obviously, you've got to take on board. You can't suppress that. You can just try and educate them to see the benefits of planning and starting early. Yeah, hopefully you get buy-in from them and you can move forward and really help them.
So just to round things off now, I know what you touched on there may be part of this answer, but just to kind of, let's say there was a 25-year-old footballer who came to you, or you kind of spotted them and just said, right, I want to give you some advice here. One day they're going to come to this position of needing to transition out of sport. What advice would you give someone if they were going to transition out of sport?
It would be very holistic. It would be sitting down with them, understanding them as a person. It'd be understanding their situation right now. So what have they got now? Do they have education? Do they have any savings? Do they have any investments? Do they have a wife? Do they have a kid? What is their expenditure? Do they budget each month? And what's their income right now? So it's a very broad, holistic approach, right? Let me know where you are at right now. Do you have any other interests already? Etc. So it's a very bespoke, holistic approach, and then you work from there, right? If they do have a budget, great. How much a month? Hopefully, how much a month spare have you got? Let's think about what's the most efficient or tax efficient way of utilizing that for your future. Do they have any debt? So mortgage debt, is that protected in case something bad happens to you and for your wife or for your children, etc. Career wise, have you thought about anything? Sign them up to laps, get them inspired, hopefully, to think about other interests and other careers they might want to do, and then formulate a plan for getting educated, work experience, CVs, for when that time comes, because it will come at some point. And yes, it's a very holistic approach, and all it takes is an initial meeting. So I would say my advice to any person 24 years old, you mentioned, that hasn't taken on any career or financial reviews, I would say, a review of where you're at financially or or in your career, reach out to someone, like become a member of Laps, and we'll obviously get in touch and reach out to you on the career angle. Reach out to someone like myself or the two lads you mentioned earlier, and just sit down and have a review. There's nothing, you won't lose anything by someone giving you a review and giving you some advice, and then it's down to you whether you want to take that advice or not. Ultimately, it's down to you and how much you buy into it. You'll lose nothing by someone sitting down and just giving you a bit of a review of where you're at to help you plan for your future self.